Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're unpacking a topic that is literally dominating coffee shop conversations, boardrooms, and let's be honest, those late-night doom-scrolling sessions. We're talking about the future of engineering careers in the age of AI. And man, there is just a palpable sense of panic in the tech world right now, isn't there? I mean, every time we refresh our feeds, there's some new headline about AI writing code, designing structures, or optimizing workflows way faster than any human ever could. It's so easy to feel like human engineers are just on a fast track to obsolescence. But today, we're going to push past all that sensationalism and look at the actual grounded data. We'll analyze a massive macroeconomic shift, break down this fascinating new academic study on the real limitations of frontier AI models, and review a comprehensive risk assessment of 194 specific engineering roles to show you exactly where the safe zones are. Okay, let's dive into this and start with the stark macroeconomic reality we're staring down right now in 2026. Over 100,000 tech workers laid off. Actually, a recent tracker logged over 128,000 tech professionals gone across nearly 300 separate events just this year alone. We're seeing massive restructuring. Intel's letting go of over 2,000 employees. LinkedIn is cutting 5% of its staff, mostly in engineering and product. Meta, Cisco, PayPal, Coinbase, the list just goes on. And these cuts, they're falling super heavily on entry-level coders and mid-level management. This isn't just a tiny dip. It is a seismic shift in the labor market that has left a lot of incredibly smart, capable people wondering if their entire career path just got automated away.
But here's where we hit an absolutely staggering paradox. At the exact same moment these tech giants are slashing payrolls, they're pouring roughly $725 billion into AI capital expenditure this year. $725 billion? That's up from $410 billion just last year. So companies are actively closing thousands of open human roles while aggressively buying up computing power. As one observer starkly put it, people are out, GPUs are in. Block openly called their 40% staff reduction an AI remake. If you just look at these two numbers side by side, 100,000 layoffs and $725 billion in AI spending, it's pretty easy to just throw your hands up and conclude the machines have won. But to understand why human engineers are still fundamentally essential, we really need to look closer at what these multi-billion-dollar AI models actually fail to do.
And that brings us to this groundbreaking study from Scale AI called the HiLA Bench, or Human-in-the-Loop Benchmark. Because before we completely panic about AI taking every single engineering job, we have to understand its fatal flaw. The researchers identified something they call the judgment gap. You see, an experienced human engineer who gets a vague or incomplete specification, they don't just put their head down and start blindly building. They pause, right? They assess what they can figure out, and more importantly, they recognize what they absolutely cannot resolve without asking for clarification. They use judgment. Current frontier AI models, they entirely lack this capability. They literally just do not know when to ask for help. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this dramatic visual representation of that exact failure. Look at those light blue bars there, representing full information. When AI agents are given complete, perfectly clear instructions, they are brilliant. We're talking frontier models boasting pass rates between 75% and 91% on complex coding and database tasks. They look totally unstoppable. But look what happens when the researchers intentionally hid just a few critical pieces of information or made the request slightly ambiguous, perfectly mirroring the messy reality of everyday engineering work. Even when they were explicitly given an Ask Human tool, their performance completely collapses. The pass rate drops to under 38% for the very best models and plummets to a dismal 4% for others. So they have the raw capability to solve the problem, sure, but they completely lack the human judgment to gather the necessary context. So, what exactly is the AI doing when it hits these roadblocks? Well, it falls straight into the bottom left quadrant here. Instead of practicing selective escalation, which just means asking a precise question to a human to clear up the ambiguity, the agent engages in what researchers brilliantly call confident hallucination. It encounters missing information, doesn't even realize it's missing, makes an incredibly confident but entirely wrong assumption, and just plows ahead. It tries to one-shot the entire project, and it fails. This silent, confident wrongness, that is exactly why enterprise AI agents are currently seeing a 90% failure rate in real-world pilots. They just can't navigate the unstated knowledge that only exists in human heads. Translating flaws to job security. How AI's lack of judgment defines the safe zones. Let's shift gears and translate this micro-level academic data into macro-level job security for you. A massive new job zone risk assessment recently evaluated 194 specific engineering roles across 2.7 million workers. And the dividing line they found? It really comes down to the environment where the work actually happens. On one side, we've got physical, site-based engineering.
On the flip side, we have digital, screen-based engineering. The hard truth here is that if your entire workflow exists on a screen, taking clear inputs, running them through software, and producing a digital output like a CAD file or a simulated model, you're playing right into AI's greatest strengths. But the exact moment an engineering role requires navigating unpredictable physical environments, or managing human stakeholders, or dealing with messy real-world constraints, AI falls apart. Because that requires the human judgment that the Layoffs study just proved AI simply doesn't possess. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive gap between the safest and most vulnerable roles. Up top, in the highly safe green zone, we're seeing jobs like a senior reservoir panel engineer with a resistance score of 78.1, or a railway signaling engineer. These roles absolutely demand hands-on presence and complex, real-time judgment. But then, look down in the red zone. We see roles like civil drafters, specification writers, and electrical drafters, with scores just plummeting down into the teens. Don't get me wrong, these are vital jobs, but they're digital-first workflows with clear inputs and highly predictable outputs. A specification writer, for example, is dealing with the exact type of fully contextualized information that an AI can process and generate in literally seconds. So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding the specific traits that build a fortress around a green zone job. Right now, about 23% of U.S. engineering workers sit in these highly secure roles because they share 4 traits that current AI just cannot replicate. First up, physical site presence. Inspecting a bridge or wiring a building? That requires a physical body on location. Second, regulatory accountability. An AI cannot hold a professional license, right? And it certainly can't go to jail if a structure fails. Human accountability is legally mandated. Third is cross-domain judgment. Human engineers balance budget, safety, and client demands all at once, whereas AI basically just optimizes single variables. And finally, unpredictable environments. Weather changes, soil conditions surprise us, engineers adapt in real time to things an AI model could never possibly anticipate from its training data. Let's move to and see how this builds into a practical strategy, especially for those of you sitting in a vulnerable red or yellow zone right now. The data shows that 63% of engineering workers are currently in the yellow zone. Now, this doesn't mean your job is disappearing tomorrow, but it does mean it is transforming and fast. AI is becoming a ridiculously powerful tool that's going to augment your work. The engineers who leverage tools like generative design, they're going to become hyper-productive, while those who don't are going to face some pretty severe pressure. You need a playbook. You can't just learn AI in a vacuum. You've got to position yourself as the critical human layer that resolves the machine's inherent blind spots. This quote from ZipRecruiter labor economist Nicole Bach-Shaw really captures the shift perfectly. She notes that AI-heavy roles are leaning hard on soft skills now: communication, collaboration, the human glue. Remember that judgment gap we talked about? Companies desperately need engineers who can catch those confident hallucinations and iron out the bugs that AI inevitably introduces. I mean, major companies like Box are actively hiring engineers specifically to manage AI agents, not just to write code from scratch. We're seeing situations where one senior engineer with AI fluency is now doing the work of an entire team by acting as the editor, the consultant, and the final judge. You essentially have to become the human glue that connects the raw, brute computational power of AI to the messy, ambiguous reality of actual business needs.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look really closely at your own day-to-day workflow and ask yourself this one vital question. Are you competing with AI on a screen, or are you managing it in the real world? If your value comes strictly from processing data into a digital file, well, it's time to pivot. Pivot toward complexity, toward physical presence, and toward that essential human judgment the machines simply do not possess. Look, the panic in the industry is real, but the data clearly shows that human engineers aren't going anywhere. We're just stepping into a brand new role. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and